Before we start this video, I want to tell you guys that there is an uncut version of this Travis Scott documentary on my Patreon page. From now on, I will be having full uncut videos of all my documentaries I release on my Patreon. For just $3 a month, you're going to get uncut raw videos the way that I intended to make them, because YouTube doesn't allow certain things because of their guidelines. The videos will also be ad-free, so you'll be able to enjoy the videos with no interruptions at all. You also will get access to our Discord community, a bunch of hip-hop heads talking about what we love the most. You'll get access to me the most on there, as well as the Diverse Mentality team. So go ahead and check us out at patreon.com/diverse mentality. The link is in the description below, and leave a like on this video. It helps us with our algorithm a lot. Appreciate it, and let's get into the video.
Breaking right now, tragedy at Astroworld Festival. At least 8 people dead and hundreds more hurt during a concert.
This morning, 2 people remain hospitalized in critical condition after the Astroworld Music Festival, including a 9-year-old boy who is in a medically induced coma.
Now, investigators are hoping that video from that music festival tragedy helps them piece together exactly what went wrong.
Trying to be a part of joy, trying to be a part of light, trying to be a part of full-blown happiness, love.
Wanna be a thief? Come up, come up, come up, come up, come up.
My intentions wasn't to harm their family at all. It's for them to come to have a good experience.
Travis Scott was barely into his set at Lollapalooza when he urged the crowd to jump the barricades into the security pit. The rapper was arrested for disorderly conduct and later pled guilty.
Nobody's hurting more than family members, and our prayers go out to them, and I ask them.
I'm honestly just devastated. I could never imagine anything like this just happening.
I mean, I think that's a part of it, but the music does encourage people to be violent at these shows. I mean, that's what the rage is about.
You know what I'm saying? But the energy isn't to come and start, being ultra violent and just being violent and hurting each other.
We want rage! We want rage! We want rage! We want rage!
What up, guys? Your boy Quake, and it seems like everything that could go wrong at a festival went wrong at Travis Scott's festival. More notably, the Astroworld Festival, which he has every single year. But this year, things took a left turn for the worse. There are multiple headlines revealing exactly what happened that night. But let's break it down to how this happened, all the way from the events leading up to the festival that night to what's happened after the festival. And I'm also going to look into the history of Travis Scott and previous concert events he's attended, and the previous lawsuits he's had to face, including arrests he's had to deal with. This all started on October 26th, 2021, when Travis Scott announced the lineup for his 2021 Astroworld Festival, which included performances by Young Thug, SZA, Lil Baby, Earth, Wind and Fire, Master P, and 21 Savage. In the caption, he wrote, "November, come, won't you pop out at the Fest? 3rd annual Astroworld Fest line is now here. Welcome to Utopia. We morphed the grounds into a new universe this year. Can't wait for y'all to see it, and I'm bringing some Avengers with me. P.S. Show is sold out, but I finessed a bit more for y'all. Let's Ragers fucking commence," with a bunch of crazy letters written after that. On November 4th, the day before the festival officially started, the police chief Troy Finner met with Travis Scott to voice his concerns over the festival. This is the statement he released. He said, "I met with Travis Scott and his head of security for a few moments last Friday prior to the main event. I expressed my concerns regarding public safety and that in my 31 years of law enforcement experience, I have never seen a time with more challenges facing citizens of all ages. To include a global pandemic and social tension throughout the nation, I asked Travis Scott and his team to work with HPD for all events over the weekend and to be mindful of his team's social media messaging on any unscheduled events. The meeting was brief and respectful, and a chance for me to share my public safety concerns as chief of police. The following day, on November 5th, the first day of the Astroworld Festival, immediately there were problems, and of course, at the fence of the security gate, fans started rushing, breaking down the fence, and rambling through the security. And of course, just at this point, immediately it looked like the security was well understaffed. And as you can see in the videos, the security is just standing by watching because they can't really do anything. And people, unfortunately, at this moment are getting trampled on as well. And this all happened in the morning of Friday, November 5th, which was the first official day of the Astroworld Festival. Concertgoers began to line up. By the afternoon, people began rushing past security checkpoints and into the venue, officials said. More than 1,000 security staff and police were present, an increase from the festival that took place in 2019, according to Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner. Now let's go over the exact timeline from that Friday from the Houston Fire Department. Their documents reveal each timestamp of what exactly happened. The video footage of the people rushing the front entrance happened at exactly 9:23 a.m. in the morning. This was nearly 12 hours before Travis Scott even took the stage. By 10:02 a.m., there were reports of fences damaged and no control of the participants. So already off the bat, before this event was even close to starting, things were getting out of hand. People felt they were understaffed, and a lot of the staff just didn't even try to stop anything because it's almost impossible to stop thousands of people trampling and people getting in without passes, all kinds of different things. 3 hours later, just before 1 p.m., things hadn't improved. There were reports of bolt cutters being used to enter the venue. So these fences didn't do anything. People were getting in regardless. By 1:59 p.m., some injuries were already reported as crowds rushed merchandise stands. Throughout the afternoon, there were constant reports of people jumping fences and other rushing an NRG park gate. By 4:54 p.m., HPD reported dangerous crowd conditions. Now, the HPD chief, Troy Finner, met with Travis Scott about these concerns that afternoon. So before the show had even started, hours before, he had met with Travis Scott and voiced the concerns about all these things happening. But according to the chief, Travis Scott and his team didn't really care, and they said the show must go on. At 5:05 p.m., crowd estimates stood at 26,000 people. Officials believe, though, 3,000 to 5,000 of them had illegally breached security to access the site. Just 4 hours later, the crowd had exploded to 55,000 people. That is overwhelming no matter what situation you're in. Way understaffed at that point because you're expecting maybe 20,000, maybe 25,000 people at max. Now you almost got double that at 55,000. And if you actually look at the Astroworld Arena, you can see that it clearly does not fit 55,000 people. At max, this probably fits 30,000 people. The main stage is what I'm referring to, which is the stage that Travis Scott actually performed at. Before Travis Scott performed at 9 p.m., there were artists that performed before him, such as opening acts. It would be Roddy Ricch, SZA, Master P, so on and so forth. But they were separated. They were in the far left of the arena. And then by the time it got to 9 p.m. is when people started going more to the main stage where Travis Scott is at. SZA was the last one to perform around 8:30 p.m. that night. When SZA got done performing, people automatically started going towards the main stage where Travis Scott was scheduled to perform at 9 p.m. People started leaving early, and at one point, it started getting really crazy. People started flooding the front gates where they wanted to get closer to Travis Scott. And there were reports from people there that they couldn't even get out of the area because so many people were going one direction that it was impossible for you to go the opposite way. Then at 9:02 p.m., Travis Scott officially performed on stage. And this is when the energy got really crazy. People started jumping up and down. More energy started going towards the front of the stage, which means more and more people were compact into an area. And at this point, people started having trouble breathing. The Washington Post really covered this beautifully. They reveal that mainly on the left side of the concert, they were having issues breathing. On the right side, they were having issues as well, but it wasn't as bad as the left side. That's because, if you guys remember earlier, like I said in the video, in the left side, there were concert performers, openers, and then eventually those people from the left side just joined the left side instead of going all the way to the right and kind of dispersing the crowd more. It ended up getting crowded on the left side a lot more than the right side. And then remember, it was supposed to be 25 to 30,000 people at max. This is 55,000 people at this point, so it's overpacked drastically. The Washington Post hired special analysts to look at the video footage of the concert, and according to them, it was 1.85 square feet of density packed within people. And with that density, it can make it very hard for people to breathe. Not enough air can be drawn.
In some pockets of the area where the video image was clearest, the density reached as high as 1.85 square feet per person.
Their analysts also looked at the crowd's movement, and it was clear in the video footage that people weren't moving to the music. They were just moving wherever the crowd took them, meaning they had no control of where to go. Fans were hyped, counting down when Travis Scott officially hit the stage. He hit the stage at 9:02 p.m., and within 3 minutes, by 9:05 p.m., there was video footage from various people that were there struggling to move, and some people down on the ground. Within the next 10 to 15 minutes, Travis Scott continues performing, but people in the crowd, mainly in the left quadrant, are having issues breathing. Some people are getting trampled on, and there even is video footage of someone trying to call 911 for help. Slowly but surely, more and more people are starting to yell, "Help, help, help." At around 9:14 p.m. came the first report to the Houston Fire Department of an individual with crush injury struggling to breathe. 10 minutes after, at 9:28 p.m., the Houston Fire Department official writes, "This is when it all got real." At 9:30 p.m., there were reports of multiple people trampled and passed out at front of the stage. At around 9:30 p.m. as well, Travis Scott noticed somebody passed out in front of him with a massive crowd and stopped the show and told the people around him to help him out and get him out of that area because the person had completely passed out. Medics came there, grabbed him out of there, and then Travis continued the show.
Yo, Mike Brown, make sure he good. Elijah, walk with him. Take him.
At 9:32 p.m., Houston police reported an unconscious female in the middle of a massive crowd. Just a minute later, there were more reports of multiple people down in the chaos. The Houston Fire Department sent out a mini ambulance to go through the crowd to help people in the crowd that were fainting or passed out. Travis Scott noticed this ambulance in the crowd, asked what that is, and asked if everyone is okay. He asked them to put their middle fingers to the sky. A lot of people did, but it was around this time where a kid by the name of Aiden Cruz was seen on viral video going up to the cameraman asking to stop the show. In that same viral video, there was a girl by the name of Sienna Faith who did the exact same thing.
That's okay with you real quick. Take me, let's do it.
And by 9:35 p.m., the 911 calls started coming in even more.
It's like folks are coming out of the crowd complaining of difficulty breathing, crushing type injuries. Seems like the crowd is compressing, from what I could tell. I was on the Delta side, and I probably saw at least 4 or 5 people pouring out of the crowd, just trying to get away from the crowd. The comps are still going on. The crowd is compressing, is compressing, and the intel we're getting is that the barricade might be compromised or being compromised. So the crowd is compressing.
At least 5 reported unconscious persons and CPR in progress. At 9:38 p.m., Houston officials said a mass casualty incident had occurred. Chief Finner says the HPD told event personnel to shut down the event once CPR was underway. Chief Finner made it clear, though, that the ultimate authority to end the show is with production and the entertainer. Travis Scott briefly stopped performing a couple of times, and by 9:42 p.m., Travis Scott would have stopped his show 3 times to help somebody that is passed out in the crowd. And within the next 10 minutes, medics would be trying to help as much people as they can. They even struggled trying to get people out of the crowd. At 9:52 p.m. that night, Drake ended up doing a surprise guest performance. And when Drake did that, there was a guy that jumped on top of the ambulance that was in the crowd and was just going crazy. After all this chaos, the show kept going on and officially ended at 10:12 p.m. Even after the concert ended, it was hard for people to get out of the show, and a lot of people had meetup spots, but they couldn't go to those spots due to ambulances being everywhere. And almost instantly, social media was in a blaze about what happened that night in Astroworld. Twitter had Astroworld trending, had victims trending, and various different topics. All kinds of videos also went viral. There was even someone who recorded themselves explaining what is going on that night.
Literally, the crowd becomes a fluid, essentially. You get pushed from the back because people keep pressing in, and then the people at the gates, they don't have anywhere to go. They push back, and so you're just kind of like flowing. It's almost like a wave, but an uncontrolled wave.
We was like literally like in hell, bro. Like it felt like we was in a concert in hell. You couldn't breathe. You couldn't see. Like just imagine all the people they're gonna find tonight who was in that crowd, who nobody could see, who nobody could hear, who passed out, and everybody was just trampling on top of them the whole concert. Like I'm thinking it's probably gonna be like at least 100 people who dead tonight. Like I kid you not. Like in the VIP section, it was so many bodies laid out. People was getting pulled out who was fainted, and the medics were trying to give them CPR, and they was flipping them over, and like they was literally turning black and blue. Like I never seen death in my fucking life, bro. Just by me alone, it was probably like 10 people laid out dead. And like once the medics tried to help them, they wasn't responding. They moved to the next person. It was nothing they could have do. Like this really fucked me up and like really spooked me tonight. Like that was like some demonic shit. Like, and what was so crazy, like people were screaming help, trying to tell Travis Scott. They was like help. The whole crowd was just going like help, help, help. And he just kept going, bro.
While all that chaos was going on social media, TMZ reported that Travis Scott had no idea that people were getting trampled, couldn't breathe, and even died at his concert. They reported that he went to a Dave & Buster's hosted by Drake immediately after the show and was unaware of anything that was going on.
When did you find out things got as bad as they did? Now, that's the question everybody wants to know.
Yeah, it wasn't really until like minutes until like the press conference until I figured out exactly what happened. You know, even after the show, you know, you just kind of hearing things, but you don't know. I didn't know the exact details until, you know, minutes before the press conference. And even at that moment, you kind of just like, wait, you know, what? Like, you know, you just went through something and it's just like, wait, what? You know.
So you didn't know people that actually passed away and stuff?
Nah.
Wow.
Until minutes before, you know, which is...
The following day is when the HPD officially investigated the event that happened and what exactly followed up. Then there were reports that officially 8 people had passed away and roughly 300 people had gotten injured at the event. Initially, Houston PD thought somebody was going around pricking people in the needle with drugs, but as they found out later on, that wasn't the case. Later on that day, Travis Scott released a statement on what's going on at Astroworld. He posted a picture writing this: "I'm absolutely devastated by what took place last night. My prayers go out to the families and all those impacted by what happened at Astroworld Festival. Houston PD has my total support as they continue to look into this tragic loss of life. I am committed to working together with the Houston community to heal and support the families in need. Thank you to Houston PD, Fire Department, and NRG Park for their immediate response and support. Love you all." The following day, Travis Scott's girl, Kylie Jenner, releases a statement as well saying, "Travis and I are broken and devastated. My thoughts and prayers are with all who lost their lives, were injured, or affected in any way by yesterday's events. And also for Travis, who I know cares deeply for his fans and the Houston community. I want to make it clear we weren't aware of any fatalities until the news came out after the show, and in no world would have continued filming or performing. I am sending my deepest condolences to all the families during this difficult time and will be praying for the healing of everyone who has been impacted. That same day, Travis Scott decided to post a video on Instagram addressing what happened at Astroworld. And in this video, he didn't even apologize. He didn't even say, "I'm sorry," which was a bad look for him. After Travis Scott released that terrible video of him not even apologizing, the person that we least expected to step up actually stepped up, and that was Roddy Ricch. He was scheduled to perform on day 2, and what he ended up doing is immediately donating any money he would have made from Astroworld Festival to the families of the victims, which was something that Travis Scott should have immediately done, and still, as of the making of this documentary, hasn't done yet. Then on November 8th is when the lawsuits started coming in like crazy. There were so many lawsuits filed towards Travis Scott, Live Nation, NRG Stadium, and everyone else involved that if I went over every single lawsuit that was filed, this video would be 4 hours long and you guys would be bored to death. So I'm only going to go over a few significant lawsuits. The first influx of lawsuits was over the weekend after November 5th, which was the night of the concert. On November 7th at 3:50 p.m., it was announced that 2 people had filed lawsuits over the weekend. Houston resident Manuel Souza filed suit Saturday in the District Court of Houston against festival founder and headliner Travis Scott, promoter Live Nation, individuals affiliated with NRG Park, Scoremore Holdings, and several other defendants. The suit describes Souza was injured without going into the nature or extent of the injuries. On Sunday, in the same district court, another plaintiff, Austin resident Christian Paredes, filed suit against some of the same defendants, including Scott and Live Nation, and notably added the superstar Drake, who was a featured guest through the climactic stretch of Scott's performance. Paredes is described in a suit as having suffered severe bodily injuries in the crowd melee, some of them characterized as permanent. After a couple of these lawsuits, Travis Scott decided to announce that he is covering the funeral costs for the deceased people at that time, which was 8. Travis Scott decided to announce more help, but this was for the people that witnessed the horrific things that happened at the Astroworld Festival. But the way this was announced, it seemed like a sponsorship like I do on my YouTube videos, and it just was poorly executed. It was a partnership between him and a company called BetterHelp, which was a network of mental health professionals, and they only offered a 1-month free trial for those people, which seemed like a horrible advertisement for their product. If you really wanted to help people and their mental health after the situation, you would have individually tried to help as much people as you can, not team up with a product that can give them only a 1-month trial and then charge them after that. As the weeks went on, more and more lawsuits piled up. It eventually got over to 300 lawsuits filed related to this Astroworld Festival. The major ones was one of them was filed for $750 million. The other was filed for $2 billion. And just recently, a new one was filed for $10 billion. Yes, 10 with a B. And since more than 300 lawsuits have been filed, the Houston Court District decided that they would compile all these lawsuits into one. And the reason why they decided to do that was to streamline the process so it wouldn't take forever to go through all these lawsuits. So instead of dealing with 300 different individual lawsuits at different price ranges, you gather them all up in one setting in one court case worth $10 billion. So whoever loses this, whether it's Travis Scott, whether it's Live Nation, NRG Stadium, whoever is going to lose this has a hefty price to pay. And that's the $10 billion question. Who exactly is responsible for what happened that night at Astroworld Festival? The fingers have been mainly pointed at Travis Scott. So let's go over why exactly Travis Scott is getting most of the blame. But then I'll explore other companies involved in this, such as Live Nation and the NRG Stadium. Of course, the first reason why Travis Scott is getting most of the blame is because he is the face of everything that's going on right now. It's his festival. He's the one that did these every single year, besides last year due to COVID, and that's why he's getting the blame for it, rightfully so, because he is the one who arranged majority of this. The second reason why he's getting most of the blame is because he has a history of enticing fans to cause chaos at his shows, and he's actually been arrested at least twice for incidents at his concerts. The first was during a 2015 Lollapalooza performance, when police said Travis Scott told attendees to climb over security barricades, and that's exactly the same thing that happened at Astroworld Festival in the merch section. The police officer said the performer played one song and then began telling fans to come over the barricades, Chicago's Office of Emergency Management said in a statement at WLS at the time. They said due to the security's quick response, the situation was remedied immediately and no fans were injured. The performer fled the scene and was taken into custody a short while later. Scott later pleaded guilty to misdemeanor reckless conduct and was sentenced to 1 year of court supervision. And just 2 years later, in 2017, after a show in Rogers, Arkansas, where he was charged with inciting a riot, disorderly conduct, and endangering the welfare of a minor, police said Travis Scott encouraged people to rush the stage and bypass the security protocols, which resulted in injuries. 2 of the charges were dismissed in 2018, but Scott pleaded guilty to disorderly conduct and paid over $6,800 to 2 people who said they were injured at his show. Another event in 2017 was a concert Travis Scott did in New York, and this was a person attending his concert by the name of Kyle Green. He ended up getting partially paralyzed. This was caused due to a fall over a balcony at the concert and was moved by the security guards without a cervical collar, backboard, or other safety precautions. On it to what happened at the Astroworld Festival, saying he was devastated and heartbroken. He even said he's even more incensed by the fact that it could have been avoided had Travis learned his lesson in the past and changed his attitude about inciting people to behave in such a reckless manner. And if that's not enough, there's video of Travis Scott jumping in a crowd at his concert, and one of the fans ends up taking one of his shoes. And instead of just trying to get back the shoe or saying, hey, you can keep it, he instead decides to incite his own fans to attack the person that took his shoe.
Come here. Get the fucker, get him. You tried to take my shoe? You want to be a thief? Come up, come up, come up. Come up, come up, come up. Get him out of here. Get him out of here. Boo! Boo! Boo!
There was even an Instagram post by Travis Scott back in 2015 showing photos of fans that have passed out or were injured in the concert. And in the caption, he calls them heroes. Due to this history, they're definitely going to use this against Travis Scott and try to put the blame on him. But that's not the only person that's responsible. Let's talk about Live Nation, who's had a long history of issues at their concerts. Travis Scott signed a deal with Live Nation back in 2018 for them to have exclusive rights to all of his performances. And if you don't know what Live Nation is, it's an American events promoter and venue operator. The company's business was built around consolidating concert promoters into a national company, but they've had a long history of issues with the events that they promoted. There's a website called npr.org that broke down the long history of issues that Live Nation has had. And since 2006, about 200 deaths and at least 750 injuries have been reported to shows connected to Live Nation. And after the Astroworld Festival incident, all Live Nation said was this: heartbroken for those lost and impacted at Astroworld last night. We will continue working to provide as much information and assistance as possible to the local authorities as they investigate the situation. Going back to Live Nation and their history, in 2011, there was a stage collapse in Indiana in which 7 people were killed and 61 were injured. The company ended up settling with the victims for $50 million. In a 2013 incident, a concert staffer in Long Island, New York, suffered brain damage after a forklift tipped over the booth he had been working in. A jury awarded him $101 million. Live Nation has been cited for various safety violations over the years, including an incident in 2018 when a Live Nation employee was hit on the head by a 6-foot steel metal post that tipped over. The victim required hospitalization. And that's just some of Live Nation's past that went wrong. Now let's talk about exactly what role they played in the whole Astroworld festival going wrong. The first two things is the setup of the area and the accessibility if something goes wrong. And this article titled How One of Live Nation's Core Business Strategies Backfired at Astroworld, written by Billboard, explained this perfectly. In the article, they say the show drew in 50,000 fans, and because of this, it needed to be organized in a way that keeps attendees safe. But Score Shows, which produces and promotes the event, set it up in a way that several concert businesses sources say may have inadvertently contributed to the crowd surge that resulted in 10 deaths and hundreds of injuries. And that parent company, Live Nation, rarely exercises the kind of oversight over events organized by its subsidiaries that might have flagged these problems before it was too late. These sources add, the hands-off approach is by design. Live Nation CEO Michael Rapino runs the company with a decentralized management strategy that encourages promoters it acquires, such as Score, to run as independent units, each responsible for its own revenue and expenses. That encourages the kind of aggressive booking strategies that keep Live Nation's event pipeline full of shows that generate Ticketmaster fees, sponsorships, and other revenue. But it also means that the expertise of its most experienced personnel isn't always shared internally. And what they mean by this is that just because Live Nation hosted the event doesn't mean that Live Nation is overseeing everything and making sure things are okay. It is a very hands-off approach, and they do this strategically so that if something goes wrong, not the whole blame can be pointed at them. The article continues and it points out something very interesting. In the wake of November 5th tragedy, Live Nation and Score, an Austin-based company that the mega promoter acquired in 2018 and now essentially operates as a subsidiary, has been criticized for allegedly cutting corners on Astroworld, but they don't actually appear to have cut costs. In fact, the stage created for just Scott's performance at the festival cost $5 million, according to Score. The promoter also hired over 500 police officers plus another 700 security guards for the festival, more than is typical for an event of that size. At least some of the fault lies in the setup of the event, however, and though Live Nation has a wealth of experts in its ranks who might have spotted potential problems, the company's various divisions operate with considerable independence. Even though they say they spent a lot of money on security and police and medical staff, there are interviews from people that actually worked there that said they barely had any experience and got cash apped maybe $200 if they were lucky.
And they just hand you the uniform?
They didn't even ask for a phone number. But see, that's,
they know your name?
They know my name. We wrote our name on like a sign and shit.
Respectfully, do you feel like you were qualified for this situation?
I do. I don't believe I was prepared.
You don't think you were prepared?
I was qualified because I believe that if we were all prepared the right way, that stuff wouldn't have happened the way it did.
And they didn't get briefed on really much of anything. There was just a paper explaining that if something went wrong, this is what they had to do. But it wasn't a briefing of a meeting with people talking and discussing about possibilities and how to communicate if something goes wrong. There was also a mention of different type of staffs, some from Live Nation and Score, and some that were just hired literally on the spot. Despite there being huge differences in experiences when it comes to staff, there was also horrible communication.
From what we understand, there were a group of individuals who were actually brought in, and then there were those who were hired locally, but it seemed to be no communication between the different entities or the different individuals. Both Samuel and Jackson at one point were separated, and Samuel didn't even know, Jackson didn't know that Samuel ended up breaking his hand until later on that night when they finally got back together, and at the same time trying to protect others.
This article also reveals that on the night of November 5th, Score co-founder CEO Sasha Gutfried was home with COVID-19, according to numerous sources. And as Astroworld descended into chaos, the responsibility for whether to stop the show mainly fell to Brad Wavra, a veteran touring executive who industry sources say doesn't have much experience running festivals. Astroworld presented acts on two stages, one for the other artists on the lineup and one for Scott. with the viewing area in front of Scott's divided into 4 sections by 4 barricades. One ran perpendicular to the stage, bisecting the audience. The others were set up parallel to the stage, one just in front of it, and one about halfway through the main viewing area, and one in front of the video cameras at the end of that area. Such setups, which are common at general admission festivals, are meant to protect fans close to the stage by limiting the number of people who can push forward into them. Unlike most festivals with potentially aggressive crowds, however, the area in front of Scott's stage didn't have barriers on its left and right sides. His stage was 200 feet long, over 3 times the length of the main stage at Coachella, and since almost all the action took place in the center, concertgoers swarmed into the main viewing area from both sides, then pushed towards the middle, according to numerous accounts. As the crowd surge worsened, fans ended up surrounded on 3 sides by barriers intended to protect them. Even before Scott got on stage, the crowd was so tightly packed that some fans began jumping over the barricades to escape a situation some said already felt dangerous. Then it got worse. Most festivals schedule performances by major artists to overlap in order to spread out the audience, but Scott was scheduled to perform after all the other acts had finished, and an on-screen countdown clock ticked off the minutes until his set began at 9:06 p.m. What should have been a steady move toward the viewing areas in front of his stage became a rush. Fans poured in from open sides of the main viewing areas, and the barriers on the other sides left no way out. Some fans were lifted into a photo pit to escape the crush. And this is the exact same thing that I was referring to earlier in this video, how artists that were performing before Travis Scott were all the way on the left side, then all the people on the left side started rushing in, and that's why the left side of the area got packed so much, and that's where all the victims were at. There should have never been a countdown at the festival. It should have had SZA performing and then Travis Scott coming out randomly around that time SZA was going to end. The article goes on to say that had Live Nation been more hands-on with this Astroworld festival, they could have potentially flagged all these hazardous areas and potentially fixed the whole issue. But because they were hands-off, these things ended up happening. Live Nation has a lot of experience in setting up live events, so they could have easily flagged these situations and avoided a lot of this. The article says it's possible that an experienced concert business executive with a background in crowd management would have flagged that Astroworld's setup had the potential to exacerbate crowding problems. It's not clear whether such a person ever saw the design plans. However, the festival's plan for backup medical care could have been flagged as well. Astroworld hired Paradox, a private company that handles medical care at many festivals and big events, and the company had a plan to get backup from the fire department if it encountered a situation for which it didn't have enough Paradox staffers or supplies. But the company gave the fire department a list of staffers' mobile phone numbers instead of one of its radios. And Pina, who is the Houston fire chief, said at the press conference that staffers were left trying to call for backup with mobile phones, which can be notoriously unreliable amid festival crowds.
I remember seeing security just recording everything, and I'm like confused what's going on. It took some minutes, and finally you see a bunch of sheriffs come in horses. And the annoying thing is, instead of them going to block off the VIP section, preventing from more crazy people to come in, they all just face us. And you just see them recording us. And it was just a horrible feeling, thinking people that's supposed to protect us is just looking at us like we're some fools, like we're supposed to basically protect each other. And I remember just yelling at them, why are you guys pointing at us? Why are you guys intimidating us? We were here. We're trying to avoid all this chaos.
And how did that happen? With a value that exceeds $26 billion, Live Nation has a wealth of resources as well as access to considerable expertise from promoters at other companies it has bought over the years. The CEO said it's very decentralized, so they believe in allowing freedom when it comes to these companies. But of course, as we know, especially with this event, that has backfired. There was even security hired by Live Nation and ScoreMore recording the concert instead of helping people. On top of all this, it has been revealed that the Astroworld venue only has a $26 million liability insurance policy, which isn't even close to covering the $10 billion lawsuit they got coming their way. Now we discuss the actual people that needed help and the 10 victims that passed away from this concert. At 10:13 p.m., which was right when the show ended, The first death was officially declared, and his name was Rudy Pena. He was declared dead in a hospital emergency room. Pena had traveled from his hometown of Laredo, Texas, to attend the festival and hoped to become a Border Patrol officer. The second official death was at 10:46 p.m. that night, and his name was Mirza Beg. He was declared dead in a hospital emergency room. He passed away saving his fiancée.
We're grieving. We're in pain. We want you guys to know our brother was the most amazing person ever to us, the closest thing. He took care of my father, my brother, my mother's over there. He died saving his fiancée. He died trying to save his love of his life. We're all in pain. We all want you guys to empathize, pray for our family. We all want you guys to pray for the people that lost their kids, 10-year-old kids, 16, 23. I don't know the names, but we're really, really hurt. We're grieving with you guys, and we just want you to know we're here.
The third official death was reported at 10:47 p.m. Her name was Madison Dubusky, and she was a 23-year-old former cheerleader who loved the color pink and worked in advertising and marketing. The fourth official death was at 10:52 p.m. Brianna Rodriguez. She was declared dead as well in the hospital emergency room. She was only 16 years old. The fifth official death was declared at 10:52 p.m. that night, and his name was John Hilgert. He was only 14 years old. The sixth official death was at 10:57 p.m., and his name was Jacob Jack Jernick. He was also declared dead in the hospital emergency room at 20 years old. The seventh official death was at 10:57 p.m., and his name was XL Acosta. He was also declared dead at the hospital emergency room, and he was only 21 years old. The eighth official death was at 11:18 p.m. His name was Franklin Pinedo. He was also declared dead at the hospital emergency room, and he was only 21 years old. And unfortunately, that wasn't the last of people passing away. Bharti Sharnani, the 22-year-old Texas A&M University senior, had been hospitalized for 6 days after the Astroworld Festival. She ended up becoming brain dead and ended up passing away.
Only thing I would say, Bharti is love. You know what is love? Bharti is love. Pure. Always thinking about everybody. Friends, parents, family, my daughters. I'm blessed. God gave me, blessing. But what happened now? What happened to my blessing now? I want my baby back, I won't be able to live without her. It's like, it's impossible. You know what I'm saying? I'm empty here. My body.
That brain dead diagnosis, by the way, might have happened because of the fact that they dropped her on her head when she was unconscious. And this goes back to what I was saying about Live Nation and Score More hiring staff that is unexperienced in these situations. And that could have caused her death potentially. We don't know now because there isn't any autopsies released of her body and exactly what caused her to pass away. But I'm sure as the court trials go on, they'll reveal something along the lines of that. And Live Nation and Score More can't escape that. A week and a half later from the event on November 14th, the youngest victim passed away from this concert. His name was Ezra Blunt, and he passed away at the age of just 9 years old.
Hopeless. The simple fact that I can't do nothing about it. Like, don't get me wrong, the doctors have been doing, and the nurses have been doing a marvelous job taking care of Ezra and keeping him comfortable and doing what they can do for him. But as a parent, just to see your child in that state, like, it's a nightmare, because that's 9 years old. That's my boy, and I'm not ready to lose my boy at all. Like, we still got a bunch of living to do. Like, we still got a long bunch of other things to do. And that's my boy.
Due to coming into a coma, succumbing to organ injuries. May all these people rest in peace, and prayers out to their family and friends. The only thing that we know publicly that Travis Scott has offered to do for these families is offer to pay for their funerals. However, most, if not all, have rejected that offering or any type of money that Travis Scott tried to pay them in. Matter of fact, their attorney said that they considered that gesture a slap in the face. Then as the weeks went on, Travis Scott was laying low, but finally he decided to do an interview, and it was with Charlemagne the God. And in this interview, he pretty much dodges every question and dodges any responsibility, and even tries to save Live Nation and Score More, and says that the responsibility for all three of them is to figure out what happened and how to make this never happen again. He never takes full responsibility or even half responsibility of what happened. Then Charlemagne asks, do you feel like the media is pointing the fingers solely at you? And this is where he plays the whole victim game, talking about, yeah, the media is attacking me and it's not fair. And the craziest thing about this is throughout this whole nearly 1 hour interview, he never says, I'm sorry to the families that lost their loved ones. We must remember, he is not the victim here, no matter how much the media is attacking him. The victims are the people that lost their loved ones. They're never going to see them again, never going to be able to talk to them again, and no amount of money that they win through a lawsuit is ever going to heal that pain. A lawyer who's representing one of the person that passed away said that he's just trying to shift blame. He said Alex Acosta and that many others killed or injured are the victims. Travis Scott, his entourage, handlers, promoters, managers, hangers-on, and everyone else who enable him are the problem. Everything that Travis Scott has done or said since 10 people died and hundreds of others were injured at his concert has been lawyer-driven and calculated to shift blame from him to someone else. Right after this interview was released, he also denied legal liability in the Astroworld tragedy by filing to have all the lawsuits dismissed. The article says a spokesperson for Travis Scott gave CNN answer documents which were filed on Monday on behalf of the rapper and his record label Cactus Jack Records in response to allegations in 6 lawsuits. The filings deny the allegations. It says defendants generally deny the allegations set forth, the documents state, and request that claims be dismissed with prejudice. So it's clear that Travis Scott, Live Nation, and Score More want to escape these lawsuits without paying a dime, but it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case because we're already seeing repercussions for what Travis Scott did at Astroworld. He's been dropped from various sponsorships / companies that worked with him, including Fortnite, and just recently it has been reported that Travis Scott was going to headline Coachella in 2022, but he's been dropped from that as well, and he even offered to perform for free to stay on the stage event, but they still dropped him. Travis Scott also announced that he is spearheading new concert safety initiatives. According to TMZ, Travis Scott is meeting with leaders from the United States Conference of Mayors and looking to form an official committee that will ensure concert and festival safety in the future. The group, which will be made up of industry-leading experts from medical, music, and tech fields, relayed their mission statement and purpose is to aggressively focus on new technologies and innovations that offer ways to address these challenges. Co-leading the charge for the safety group alongside LaFlame is chair of the conference's Tourism, Art, Parks, Entertainment, Sports Committee, and Reno Mayor Hillary Sheev. The crazy thing is, after this announcement, Congress decided that they're going to investigate into the deadly Travis Scott Astroworld concert. But in this article, they are saying that they're mainly looking at Live Nation. And the reason why is because they said Live Nation Entertainment was the concert promoter reportedly responsible for planning, staffing, putting up money, securing permits, finding vendors, communicating with local agencies for the Astroworld Festival, said the letter signed by Reps Carolyn B. Maloney, James Cooner, Kevin Bradley, Al Green, and Bill Pascal Jr. Recent reports raise serious concerns about whether your company took adequate steps to ensure the safety of the 50,000 concertgoers who attended Astroworld Festival, the members wrote in the correspondence to Live Nation's CEO, Michael Rapino. The company organized the event. January deadlines are this. According to ABC News, the House Oversight Committee asked that the information regarding the roles and responsibilities for the festival, security planning, and the steps Live Nation took after being made aware that law enforcement had declared the event a mass casualty to be released by January 2022. The article says the committee also requested a briefing on the topics listed in the letter above by January 12, 2022. Please be prepared to address additional concerns regarding Live Nation's entertainment safety practices, including those relating to Astroworld Festival and other events organized by your company, it said. The committee continues and says this is a horrifying way to die and absolutely preventable. Their families and our community deserves answers to make sure this never happens again. I push for this congressional investigation to hold the concert promoters and organizers accountable, identify the causes, and make sure families no longer have to wonder if their child, friend, or loved one will come back from a concert alive. In response, Live Nation released the following statement. We are assisting local authorities in their investigation and will of course share information with the committee as well. Safety is core to live events, and Live Nation engages in detailed security planning and coordination with local stakeholders, including law enforcement, fire, and EMT professionals. We are heartbroken by the events at Astroworld, and our deepest sympathies go out to the families and friends of the victims. So it mainly looks like Live Nation is going to pay for what happened that night at Astroworld. Who knows in the lawsuit if Travis Scott is going to be held liable, but we'll have to see down the line. But the good thing about this is at least something is being done, and hopefully there are going to be investments made into better technology to make sure that people are okay when it comes to concerts and big festivals like this. Now, as time goes on, we'll see what happens with these lawsuits. Even if the victims win money, it's never enough to bring back those people that passed away. They're forever gone, but hopefully they can find some sort of comfort in seeing justice served through the lawsuits. So once again, prayers out to the victims and their family and friends. It's a very tough situation to be in, and hopefully Travis Scott learns from this, moves on from this, and changes the way he decides to perform at his shows and doesn't entice his fans anymore to act crazy. That's it for this documentary. I'm going to do a part 2 probably a couple of years down the line once these lawsuits finally settle, and follow up with everything. That's it for today's video. If you guys want to support this channel further, you can do so at patreon.com/diverse mentality. For just $3 a month, you can get my videos uncut and raw the way I intended them to be, but couldn't because of YouTube. Plus, you also get access to our Discord community, where we have a great community talking about hip-hop and various other things. It's very dope. So only $3 a month. I'd really appreciate the support. Also follow us on social media at QuakeGW and at Diverse Mentality. Thank you so much for the support, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.